matter, we'll start by confirming that all remote members of the board are present and able to be heard. Do we have any?
Just Jiffy.
Yep. Yeah. I can hear you.
And Mr. Berger?
Mr. Berger is here.
Thank you. Good evening. It is 7:06 p.m. This open meeting of the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted both remotely and in person, consistent with the temporary provisions of the open meeting law, which extends remote meeting protocols through March 31st, 2025. This meeting is convening via Zoom video conference and in person as posted on the meeting agenda, which can be found on the Town of Grafton website. Please see the meeting agenda for details on how to participate remotely. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording of this meeting, and the recording may be published or rebroadcast at a later date. This meeting may feature public comment. For anyone attending virtually, if you would like to request acknowledgement to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Is there echo?
Yeah, mine somehow clicked back on. I turned it off again.
The meeting administrator will enable you to speak when it's your turn. For those on the phone exclusively, the meeting administrator will enable you to speak. For those in person, we ask you to step to the podium to speak. For all speakers, state your name and address prior to your comments or questions. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be done by roll call vote. All right. So the first item is High Point. Oh, actually, I take that back. At Mr. Berger's request, we'll discuss the bylaw revision related to the shed setbacks. Actually, Mr. Berger, do you want to just give your summary of this, if you don't mind?
Well, I can. 15 years, 20 years, you've had several requests for variance for people that want to place sheds closer than the setback that's allowed under our bylaw. And we find it awful hard to grant a variance where they just don't have the room to put a shed on the pre-existing non-conforming lots. The difficulty with trying to draft a bylaw just for pre-existing non-conforming lots made it almost impossible to get through planning board. So Katrina and I and the town planner took a look at what we're trying to accomplish. And I think if we just put a footnote in for all the lots and give relief for accessory structures 200 feet of under, I think we can address the problem that's out there for a few, but we're going to give relief to all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McCusker.
What do you mean by give relief to all?
Well, if you have a lot that's conforming, that you are in a lot with 20,000 square feet or 40,000 square feet, and you want to put a shed, you're not going to have to go on the setbacks of 15 and 10. We're just saying under this footnote, you can now be 5 and 5.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I don't necessarily recall.
That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, I don't think there's been I don't recall it being a case of wanting to do it just for people with non-conforming lots. I mean, there's people with conforming lots that I think have the same feeling that they don't want to have to put their shed 15 feet out from the back and 15 out from the side. So I'm perfectly good with, fully conforming lots also being able to put the shed 5 feet and 5 feet.
I am too. I just wanted you to be aware, this was the easiest path that we could go, or with the least resistance because it would have been too difficult to try to craft this just for non-conforming lots. And really, through the chair, most of the times that you've had requests for variance were pre-existing non-conforming lots.
Okay.
Most of them, 90%. But I want to hit them all.
Yeah, the one that stands out to me is, I think, over near Airport Road or in that neighborhood. There was 4 lots that abutted with
Right.
corners, and 2 or 3 of them already had sheds that were close to the lot line, and one didn't, and he was out of luck because he tried to get a permit for it. So this, I think, makes sense.
So, Mr. Chairman?
And any other,
I just had one question. Was there any discussion as to why it went from, like, all of the side and rear setbacks are 15, 30, or 35, why it went from that to 5 as opposed to maybe 10 feet?
Because we have smaller lots in town, and
Oh.
there's certain lots that
So
it
5
was
just
just
makes more
easier to
sense.
do 5 and 5 versus, because that was always the issue, was somebody who tried to meet the setback of 10 and 15, or even on the flexible lot, 7 and 15, it's in their living room,
Got it.
because the lots are so small on the non-conforming lots.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll bet there's people gonna complain about 5 as well. 'Cause I know people wanna put it right on the line.
Yeah.
Got it.
How come on the use schedule for residential, multifamily, and neighborhood business, and they all have the 10 asterisk, but it doesn't apply to them? Why is it even there?
I can answer that.
Mr. Berger.
So you have some single-family houses that are in a zoning district that is not allowed single-family houses. So if you have a house on
Okay.
an OLI, in an OLI district, we didn't want to say you can't have this. So it's really for this 1 and 2 family use.
Yeah, I understand now. I didn't even think of that. I should have.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McCusker.
So, Bob, what else are accessory structures? And I probably should open the book and look, but like, are pool houses accessories? Maybe a tiki hut next to your pool, is that an accessory?
If it's
How
if
about
it's-
a big dog house? And I don't mean that facetiously, but I know I had an uncle who had 2 guard dogs in a house in a building that was probably about 200 square foot. Are those all accessories?
Yes, and your chicken coop is an accessory.
Yeah. Chicken coop, I think, has some other, doesn't that require a special permit? Oh, no, we got rid of that, didn't we?
No, not if you're in a residential district and you only have 6 chickens and no rooster. You laugh.
You
I'm
laugh.
losing
I'm
it.
not,
Do you know how many phone calls we get of people who have roosters?
I had one 2
Let's
neighbors
not
over,
go there.
and the neighbor between me and them helped get rid of the rooster.
Bob, yeah, I probably, before we finalize anything like that, I probably would want to look at what accessory really means and give a little bit of thought to what else we're opening the door for. All right, so the other thing I'd like to my understanding is, planning board basically put this together with, I guess, a lot of input from you, Bob. They don't want to sponsor it. I get that. I think that I was initially reluctant for the ZBA to sponsor it because it's got to go through planning. It seems to me that, we're too late for fall town meeting, so probably the thing we need to do is just do maybe a quick joint meeting at some point in the next couple of months with planning, make sure we're all on the same page, and then we can, sponsor this for spring town meeting.
I had the same
This is set
feedback.
for fall.
What's that?
But if this is set for the fall town meeting.
What do you mean it's set?
They're holding
a
spot.
placeholder.
They have a placeholder that
Oh.
if you guys vote on this tonight, there's a placeholder. It can get on the fall town meeting.
But it doesn't have to.
No, correct.
If you want to pull this back and dive a little bit deeper, maybe have more of a definition of what the accessory structures are, and kind of narrow it down if you don't want a pool house. We try to bring it to sheds. I think we had the terminology of sheds in there.
In my opinion, we should try and get this on. I mean, if there's a spot there, somebody's already done a lot of the work, then,
Yeah,
let's
Fiona did-
do it.
I agree.
Fiona did all
Worst
the
case,
legwork.
if we think on this some more, and we realize that maybe accessory structures is too vague, then we can always ask to have it passed over. Right.
Right, I agree.
So I say, if the infrastructure's already been done, it's already there, let's go for it. Let's get it on there. And then we can still research it. We can ask to pass over it, or for that matter, we can vote against it if we really think it's bad.
And what do you mean by pass over it?
Well,
And Mr.
let's
Chair?
say we decide that, accessory structures is bad because it'll allow something that we don't want. Then we I think at that point, you approach, the moderator and you say that you want to have this passed over, and then gets to town meeting, and town meeting just votes to pass over.
And we have the ability to do that as sponsors of it.
I mean, let's face it, if we said we didn't want to have pool houses as part of this, then everybody just get a permit for a shed, build it, and then turn it into a pool house. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no,
I
I get that. I just, I'd like to think about it a little bit more, but I think the reality is accessory structures is probably the right verbiage.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Berger,
you still have one more shot at this, because once you say, yeah, we're going to sponsor this, planning board's going to hold the public hearing. And then when planning board holds the public hearing, that's when you can go to the public hearing and give more input. And that's where things can actually change, added, subtracted, whatever. So this is just you saying, you know what, I think this is a good idea. I kind of like the language. Let's go forward with it. And then we're going to have a hearing in planning board, and there'll be more discussion.
Yeah.
okay, I think that makes sense.
So what do we need to do at this point?
I think we
Vote
need
on it.
a motion to, for the ZBA to sponsor this change to the zoning bylaw.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McCusker,
I move that the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals sponsor the proposed change to zoning bylaw section 3.2.3.2 intensive use schedule as presented this evening.
Second.
motion made and seconded, and this refers to the August 1, 2023.
Bingo, yeah, let's put that, I say that, the August 1, 2003 proposal as presented this evening.
2023.
2023. I can't talk. I'm not going anymore. Yeah, so if we can add that.
Okay.
All right, motion made and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. The motion is passed, so the zoning board will sponsor.
So I think this means that we'll need somebody to actually stand up and present this at town meeting.
Probably.
Keep that in mind. I don't even know when town meeting is this fall.
Third Monday of October, I think.
So we'll
Something
just
like
keep
that.
that in mind.
I'll look on the schedule before we leave tonight and let you guys
All
know.
right, and somebody will communicate to planning that we're
Yep.
sponsoring this, and they'll schedule it.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll email Fiona.
okay.
All right,
Thank you, ZBA. Everybody have a good night.
thank you.
Thank you,
Good night.
Bob.
Good night, Bob.
Good night.
So regarding Mr. Hignorani, I received an email from him on 8/16, he's requesting for permission from the ZBA to allow him to proceed to construct drainage on his property owned by me as the plans that have been approved by Sean Reardon. That was the email I received.
So I reviewed the minutes from that meeting, and I know we had accepted the proposal subject to Sean Reardon's comments, or I believe as conditions to that. But I didn't get so far as to look at what those conditions were.
So those conditions are pre-construction information required should include at a minimum construction access laydown, erosion and sedimentation controls, temporary construction fence, final stabilization, and long-term operation and maintenance. And I don't know that we've received any of those. And I spoke with Dan Hill this afternoon, and he emphasized that when that information is received, it should be reviewed by Sean, because he's essentially our peer review, or our professional for this matter. So I don't know if we've actually received any of that, but
I have not received anything.
I don't think we have either.
Anyone from the project like to address that?
Yeah, this is Patrick Garner. I'll do so. We're under the impression that everything is completely finished. I've gone back and forth with Sean on several occasions. I've gotten his green light. He recommended that we go directly to the board with the information. He's basically approved it. We've done everything to our knowledge that was part of the last hearing requirements. The plan's been tweaked. The erosion control has been okayed. As far as I know, we are completely good to go and ready for your approval. We're eager to begin construction. The erosion control has already been put in place and exists. And we're simply looking for your green light to go.
So we've received nothing from Sean Reardon though.
Yeah.
Okay, well that is, I guess, a surprise to us, because we thought that Sean was in direct touch with either the board or Dan.
Yeah, like I said, I spoke with Dan this afternoon about this, and he's not aware of it. And it's great that you've been working with him, but I think what we really need is just something from him saying it would be great if it could reference his July 14th letter and say, my recommendations or whatever have been fulfilled, because that's what we included in the NPC, right? Is we reference that document, specifically, subject to conditions described in Sean Reardon letter dated July 14th. So I think we just need to make sure that all that stuff has been addressed, and I think the board would be good to go.
Okay, yeah, well, we had approached you because it sounds like a communication thing, because our impression was that Sean had reviewed it. I had, after the last hearing, my firm submitted more information to Sean. Sean had further comments. We tweaked the plan. We got an email from him saying, great, I'm on board. I think you fulfilled all the requests. Please go directly to the zoning board. But it sounds like, we decoupled at some point and he didn't get in touch with you.
Right. So I would say going forward, just make sure that you close the loop with Katrina on that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are eager to get going. And it's not, I don't know how else we can do it other than, have you back here for our next meeting, with that information.
Okay, Tim, Peter, does anyone know anything that I don't know? I don't want to be speaking for you if you're 2 steps ahead of me.
Oh, Mr. Barlow has his hand raised.
Okay.
I think you can go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking my Sean's last email. We're in a conundrum. Said that he's waiting for direction from the ZBA on what to do. So I think he's waiting for somebody from the ZBA to tell him it's okay to write a letter. We asked him for approval in writing, and he said he cannot do that till he hears from the zoning board.
So, Tim, do you have like a date on that communication? Because Katrina's throwing her hands up saying, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I can pull it out and send it to Katrina. Yeah,
I mean,
but
was the ZBA on that email in any way?
I'm trying to pull it up right now. If I can do so, I'll.
Yeah, it went. Pat should have it. Yeah.
The last thing I have from
Yeah, so
Ritter is
Sean,
the
Sean
letter.
wrote us on August 8th. He didn't, let's see, let me see. And he did not copy anybody on the zoning board. And he wrote and said, I plan to wait for direction from the town or its attorney. And
Well,
let's see.
I think we can make sure he gets that direction first thing in the morning, but
Thank you.
unfortunately,
Yeah,
it sounds like this
we
is the first
wrote,
we're hearing of it.
Yeah.
yeah, we sent Katrina a contact form on August 8th. And it reads, hi all, let's see, this is from me to the team. I just sent Katrina the cover letter plan and drainage analysis. The attachment acknowledging receipt is attached. So this was all sent to her, but it does sound a little strange, doesn't it, that we don't have Sean participating. Okay, I think we're completely thrown for a loop. We hope that we get your blessing tonight. I can sure get in touch with Sean tomorrow morning. But it sounds like, I mean, our last communication from Sean was that he needed to hear from you. He couldn't take direction.
I think that's fine. I think we would say, Sean, please, take a look at what they're doing and make sure it meets your July 14th letter. I think we would say all that, but nobody knew we had to say it.
Yeah. Could we request that perhaps Katrina contact Sean, or that someone
Oh, well,
or
I need a
contact
copy. I
Danielle?
need a copy of that email. I don't even have a copy of that email. So if somebody could forward that to me, so then I can get a hold of Sean, so I know what I'm talking about. Absolutely, but I don't have it. I just went through all my emails.
Or even
Yep.
I could work with you tomorrow
Yeah.
morning. It's a note to Sean and
Yeah,
and we
which I
just,
can do. I just don't
know.
want to go blindly.
yeah.
If you,
I
Yeah, the
can
only-
work with her in the morning as well.
Yeah, the only thing we've received from Sean is an August 8th email saying that he couldn't proceed without somebody on the board asking him to do so.
Yeah, so forward that off as well. But I think one way or another,
Yeah.
we'll get something out to Sean in the morning.
Could
Okay.
we just authorize somebody on the board to okay the start of this after talking with Sean Reardon?
That's what I was like. Could we
You know, I mean,
conditionally?
this thing just keeps month here, month there.
I'm okay with that. I think that's a good idea.
You the volunteer? No, I don't.
I don't have a problem with that.
You have time for something like
Yeah,
that?
sure. Why not?
I mean, this isn't critical that I see where it needs a vote of the board. I mean, it needs a vote of the board to authorize you to
speak for us.
to clarify the details, that's all.
I don't have a problem with that.
Because if we waited a month, it's still gonna come back
Yeah.
a month later, and we're getting into the,
I think that's a great idea. I'm okay with that.
I don't want anybody to lose a growing season, which we're in right now.
Yeah.
On this swale and all that, so.
Yep. I'm okay with that.
Mr. Walsh.
Jeff Walsh, Graves Engineering. I don't have direct involvement with this matter, but nevertheless, I just want to make sure that the board is also going to be getting the documentation it needs from the applicant's team with respect to the final documentation agreed upon between Mr. Garner and Mr. Reardon. That also seems to be missing. I would have thought that if there were discussions between the developer's team and Mr. Reardon and they came to a conclusion, at the conclusion of plan revisions, I would have thought the developer's team would have sent to the board the final version of the plan so you have something in your file, and that seems to be missing too.
Yeah, Jeff, let me interject. On August 8th, we did send via Katrina on the town contact form the plan and the drainage calculations and the communication. So that should all be in place. And if it's not, of course, let us know. We can resend that. But that was done 3 weeks ago.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you, Pat. I wasn't aware of that. I just wanted to make sure that point wasn't missed.
And it
Yeah.
is here, suggests that prior to any work being performed on site, the developer be required to provide a detailed design of the improvements, including all details of construction and demonstrating how the work will be performed. So yeah, that's definitely part of it, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so at this time, like a motion, I guess, what are we moving?
Authorize Bill to negotiate the start of the,
Okay. Provisionally approve the start of work subject to,
Clarification
review.
and documentation.
So it's subject to receipt of, documentation per the NPC dated August 29th.
You're making the motion, right?
yeah, that's
Okay,
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that again? I'm writing fast, but
Hang
not
on.
that fast, Doc.
I move.
Yeah, to authorize Bill McCusker to,
No.
no? Oh, Bill's writing it down for me.
to authorize. Take that back.
To review and clarify.
They're asking us to,
The
permission
receipt
to begin
of-
construction.
Correct.
Grant provisional approval.
I know what we're
subject
doing, but I
to
don't know how to put it in words.
review by final review.
Grant provisional, I like that.
You'll
Provisional
read it back
approval
to you.
to ART to begin construction of improvements described
You know, I agree.
in NRT, notice of NPC, notice of project change,
Talk about kicking
August
it to the
29th,
road.
subject to final review by Sean Reardon. Or no, Sean Reardon's actually, he's got a company name, doesn't he? Tetra Tech.
Tetra Tech.
By Tetra Tech. To be confirmed by Vice Chairman. So what I've scribbled down here is, we move to grant provisional approval to Adams Road Trust to begin construction of improvements described in the notice of project change dated August 2019, subject to final review by Tetra Tech to be confirmed by Vice Chairman McCusker. How's that sound?
Perfect.
That's my motion.
There you go.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Hope I don't have to, hope I don't have to repeat that one.
So I see your hand up. We're not going to have public comment.
I submitted a public comment. Do you recognize it at all?
So I'll acknowledge the receipt of a letter from Nancy Lacconi of 3 High Point Drive, which is attached, I believe, to the project on the website, correct? I mean, I think there's a few things in this letter that, go beyond what the matter at hand is, and I think there's some insinuation that our peer reviewer, Mr. Reardon, is expressing distrust of the developer, and I just don't see that anywhere in here. That's not, it seems to take his words out of context. And I understand there's a civil matter in process, but, that goes beyond the scope of this board. So I think, we acknowledge receipt of it, but, we vote on it. So, all right, so we'll move on to Upton Road.
Case 898.
Case number 898. And I'll turn this over to Mr. McCusker.
Thank you. So I'll start, to the developer, do you guys have anything you want to present? Any new information? You changed it, turned it upside down, anything along those lines?
No.
No new information that you wish to present?
No, not at this time.
So I think we're prepared to go through, our peer review of the traffic and peer review of, the conservation issues. So I guess we'll start with traffic, and go from there. So, we are in receipt of a letter from Tech, And I think maybe best to just let Kevin go through it at this point.
Sure.
Lead us through it, and yeah, go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I mean, we haven't had a formal presentation on traffic from the developer. I don't know if we should do that first. Does it matter? I mean,
Hello, Tim.
do you have a
What's the
preference?
board's pleasure?
I don't know.
Figure out
I
how
can
to
go through it pretty
disconnect
quickly
myself.
and then
How did you
let
disconnect?
him, let,
Yeah, that probably would be the way to go. Can you mute Peter?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. We should hear the.
no problem. Okay, so, good evening, for the record, I'm Heather Monacup with Greenman Peterson, and, we're the traffic engineers for the proposed project.
Heather, how do you spell your last name?
It's Monticup.
Thank you.
Like it sounds. So we did do a traffic study. The traffic study was for 156 residential units. I am understanding that it has been reduced a little bit, so the numbers are a little bit conservative, but I'll present what was in the traffic study. So we looked at existing conditions, 2022 conditions. Our study area intersections consisted of Route 140 at Old Upton Street, Route 140 at Meadowbrook Road, Route 140 at Sibley Street. Then we also looked at Sibley Street at Old Upton Street and Old Upton Street at our site driveway. In that traffic study for existing conditions includes information about public transportation, when we did our traffic counts, our COVID adjustments, our seasonal adjustments. We looked at collisions, both local police department as well as Mass DOT. We got speeds along Old Upton Street where the site driveway will be, and we also investigated site distances. For future conditions, we went out 7 years, 2029 conditions. We looked at traffic growth. We looked at any background developments that have been approved, and we investigated if there were any proposed roadway improvements in the area. The project, based on 156 units, we used the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, for multifamily housing, low-rise. That's what this facility fits into, for 156 units, and we found that that would generate 71 weekday AM peak hour trips and 88 weekday PM peak hour trips. To figure out where the traffic would go from the site, we used U.S. Census Bureau data, journey to work data, which says people who live in Grafton, where do they typically go to work? So based on that, we would expect traffic increases beyond the study area, somewhere between 4 and 44 vehicle trips during the peak hours. So that's an increase of about 1 additional vehicle trip every 1.4 minutes to 15 minutes. We also provided some parking information in our traffic study that included the town standards as well as some information from ITE. And then we ran capacity and queue analysis and found that with the project in place, all movements at all intersections operate at level of service C or better, so that is acceptable. They're all under capacity with queue lengths of less than 1 vehicle. In that traffic study, we also included some suggested transportation demand measures to reduce single occupancy trips. I could go through TEC's comment letter, but since they're here, I don't want to steal their thunder, but it was dated August 24th, and we received it, and we have not had a chance to respond. We wanted to come to this meeting first, and then we will prepare a formal response letter. So with that, I can either answer questions or can move on to
The 71 per AM peak hour?
71 trips total, ins and outs, during the weekday AM peak hour.
And what time is that?
We take the peak hour between 7 to 9 a.m.
7 to
So
9.
we count between 7 to 9, then we take the peak, and then we add that 71 trips on top of all the traffic at those intersections during that peak period. Same thing during the PM, 4 to 6 p.m. we look at. We take the highest peak hour, then we add those 88 trips to all the intersections.
Just to clarify, excuse me, Heather, that Peter, that could be like 7:42 a.m. to 8:42.
Yeah.
Peak hours anywhere in that 2 hour window.
But 71 vehicles are basically leaving the project.
In and out.
In
Coming
and,
In and out,
it's,
okay.
it's seven,
Combined.
it's, 17 entering and 54 exiting, as you can imagine. People leave in the morning, and then when they come back, it's 55 entering and 33 leaving.
Where do you get the numbers?
That is, it's a national database. That's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the ITE Trip Generation Manual. So it's the standard, data that we have to use for
Yeah.
these types of developments. There's lots of data for this. This isn't a scarce data source, so.
Especially this use. There are some uses that are
Yes.
kind of scarce, but
Yeah.
this use is pretty.
Okay.
And it's just, if I'm not mistaken, the ITE was recently updated.
The 11th edition
11th
just
edition.
came out, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I just missed what you said. There was like a number that you said between
That's
4 and 40.
Oh, I'm sorry. So once you distribute the traffic onto all the roads, so some roads are gonna get 10% more traffic, some are gonna get 45, whatever. It's between 4 and 44 vehicle trips per hour, that would increase on any given roadway in our study area, beyond the site driveway in the study areas.
And that's in that peak hour,
In
correct?
the peak hour, and the peak is the highest. It would be you'd expect it to be a little bit lower during other times of the day. But we always look at when the traffic is highest on the roadways and then add our traffic onto it, especially for residential development, commuting peak hours.
Mr. Chairman? Oh,
That's you.
I've made it. I have finally shed it. Oh my God, I love it. All right, so a question I have is, I just find it hard to believe anyone going north on Upton Street is gonna come out of the project driveway, turn left onto the crickety old road to get to Upton Street, get to 141. 140 is like right there within sight distance, right?
Correct. Yep.
So, I guess one question I have is, you're basically saying about 50% of the traffic that's going north will actually go Old Upton Street versus right to 140. And if all of it were to go straight to 140, and I'm looking at like figure 6,
Yep.
and you're showing 14 would go like straight over to 140, and 13 would go the crickety old road to get to 140. If all 27 went straight over to 140, does that change any of the queuing and intersection levels and that sort of thing?
You mean at 140, would it change it?
Yeah.
Like if we changed it, it may, I don't think that it would drop it to an F or anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't
but-
think so, but I don't know. I don't know how
We did
others
not look
feel,
at
but-
it that way, but I understand what you're saying. If you're saying if we were to look at this with the driveway, it's all lefts in and all rights out, just for this, out of the site driveway. And they all go to 140, how would that change the impacts at
Well,
140?
it's anyone going north on 140 is gonna go right out of the driveway, I would think.
Yeah, right.
It just
Correct.
feels
Yep,
that
yep.
way as if, I just can't imagine if I was in that development and I wanna go north on 140, that I would turn left onto the old road, loop around to get on 140.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. I mean, I guess we could take a look and see what happens.
Probably
Again,
should.
Level of service, see, I don't think it's gonna change anything, but yeah. And Kevin will tell you, there's some site at 140 and when you turn right out of the site driveway there, when we did our traffic study, the sight lines were clear, but since then, it's been grown, so that'll be one of the comments that when we, work about clearing some sight lines over there. I'm not worried about the analysis, I don't think, but we could definitely include that as part of our response to comments. And do a new analysis at that one
It's tougher with
intersection.
snowbanks in the winter to
Yeah.
take that left to go.
Good point.
I did it a long time. Oh,
Left leaving old onto 140, is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah, in the winter.
I plowed for the state, so,
Yeah.
and that back road is state road.
Right.
It is, I confirm
Both
that.
are.
You're right, it is state road.
Yeah, well,
Both
I
of them.
plowed it for 31 years, so. I hope I wasn't wasting my time.
As long as you got paid, Peter.
Yeah, I got paid, so it didn't matter, but.
Mr. Chairman, if I may? Oh, that's right. I'm looking. You got me trained, Bill. I agree with you that path of least resistance would be take a right out of the development to Old Upton Street, but if there was one or two queuing times, or if I happen to leave and I'm always, I see that person can't make a decision quickly, Sibley Street would be my second shot right
Sure.
away.
Yeah,
Just knowing the area.
would think.
Yeah.
I can see how there would be a distribution both ways.
yeah, that's a fair point. You take a look, you see two cars waiting to turn left.
Go the other way.
Yeah,
Sibley's safer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people speed up when they get into that, from Sibley Street on 140 to that, they speed up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
The grade increases downhill,
Yeah.
goes up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could jump in on the conversation, there are different characteristics at the two intersections of Old Upton Street. The one closest to the site is on the inside of the curve, so that's why with some of the brush considerations, once that's cleared, it will provide the recommended sightlines pretty easily. But if you go up to Sibley Street and then do that little right, and then take a left onto 140, that is on the outside of the curve, so it does have superior sightlines. So I am in no way concerned about the distribution of traffic, because there will be some people that more naturally feel comfortable up there at Sibley Street. But I can tell you with a high degree of certainty that, any of the changes, if you threw all the traffic turning left at one or the other,
Not gonna change.
it wouldn't materially change any of the recommendations. So,
Kind of what I figured, but
but if you'd like, I can just walk through my thoughts on the study, unless there's-
well, so
I'm
right, and then anyone on the board have any questions or comments? Go
Okay,
ahead.
great.
Yep.
So I had issued a draft letter dated August 24th, and it sounds like everybody has it, so it sounds like it's pretty fine. And I did that really just to be able to clarify if there were things that were not worded well enough that, we could better clarify within the letter before issuing, but I think all the material points are here. I will say that the traffic study was very professionally prepared, it was thorough, and it was appropriate, in my opinion, for the study area for this scale of project. If you look at some of the figures that are in the study, there is almost no traffic today on Old Upton Street, so it's essentially ready for traffic to be there. Certainly, certain aspects of the infrastructure are older, certain things that might be able to be better clarified, like up at Old Upton Street and Sibley Street, where the traffic control is a little vague, as far as like who has the right of way. I think those are things that I can discuss with Ms. Montecalf to clarify, and there might be some things that are low-hanging fruit, signing, striping, that can help improve the operations and safety there. Ultimately, a lot of the first part of my letter is confirmatory as far as the things that we reviewed that we agree with. And I think too, in addition to the town process, it would appear that based on the volume of traffic and or the level of new parking and its proximity and adjacency to state highway, that it will likely require some level of review with MIPA at the state level. So there will be another set of eyes on it if that puts other folks, comfort that there's going to be other professionals at DOT that'll likely look at this. Ultimately, I think we already talked about the sightlines. There's some brush that has grown in, likely since the report was completed, but I don't see it being a challenge to address. It's very clearly been had brush removed routinely along the edge of State Highway. There is an opportunity, though, with going westbound, northbound on 140, where right at Old Upton Street, closest to the site, it does open up for that climbing lane. And depending on the current volumes, and one thing that may come up during the state review is that the timing of the data, they changed their policies in 2022. I really don't see it, again, materially affecting anything, but they may want a spot count to be able to see what it's like in the quote new normal post-COVID, with MassDOT's policies changing in March of 2022 to say that any new applications should have new data. I don't see that being a big deal, but it might be helpful if there was a spot count to have it at that easterly intersection on Old Upton Street, so that it's another data point to look at the left turn volumes. But there's an opportunity there to possibly restripe something that the applicant's team can review with DOT, because DOT has exclusive jurisdiction over that section of 140 and its intersections. But really guidance for that process, that there may be an opportunity to have a more formally striped left turn pocket in towards the site, and the climbing lane can open up just after that. But it does have the capacity, in my opinion, to accommodate the project. As far as there's no real description, and it's probably because there are really no facilities for pedestrian or bicycle accommodations on Upton Street, 140, or Old Upton Street. So similar to the discussion with the board for Pleasant Street, you know, I think it would make sense to have a fair share contribution towards, you know, the planning and or future design of sidewalks that, you know, because this is a larger multifamily development that will have folks that will undeniably want to walk or bike, and the infrastructure is lacking today, and it's not the applicant's full responsibility, but there may be a process to try to identify something on, particularly on Old Upton Street. It is very wide in sections, so to try to introduce a sidewalk where grading can occur, it might be done somewhat easily, either as a future state or town project, depending on where the jurisdiction lines are. To better identify some of the different traffic flows in and out of Old Upton Street, you know, it would make sense to have some sections of double yellow, stop lines, stop signs that are not there today at the Old Upton Street intersections with 140, at least on the easterly intersection. I think the applicant has proposed some very good transportation demand management measures. They are pretty customary, not only for what we'd see for a project of this size, but for things that they'll need to review at a state level as well. More of the comments, suggestions that I have relate to the site plans. I think, again, because of the scale of the development, it would make sense to try to identify and formalize an area for a bus stop, you know, at the bottom of the site driveway where it meets Old Upton Street. There will likely be a, you know, high concentration of children there. So if they can have sidewalk space and or a bus shelter, it's more likely that they can be invited to use that instead of having a bunch of single occupancy vehicles dropping them off at school. I think one question, it's really clarification maybe for the applicant's counsel or town council, just to review the aspects with that cross access easement that's shown on the plans. And does that, any of that have to be redefined, more formally defined on the plan? Because I think it just notes that it is, but not necessarily a specific location. It would be helpful just to verify, I do not anticipate any real issues with it, but to verify the truck turning analysis, the truck sweeps in and around the parking areas and access aisles based on a Grafton Fire Department, the largest Grafton Fire Department vehicle, and other single unit trucks that might be representative of moving trucks. They're just like any new, larger multifamily developments, and with package delivery services, they become, you know, it can become kind of a hornet's nest of activity with multiple trucks coming in and out all times of day. So I think similar to some of the comments I had on Pleasant Street is, And there are opportunities already on the plan as it exists with minor modifications to try to identify areas where something like an Amazon truck or FedEx truck can pull off out of the aisle a little bit in front of the different buildings, or in an area in between like buildings 1 and 2 on the left side of the plan up there. Just for the practical needs of, you know, the high volume of package delivery services these days. Possibly adding areas for visitor parking. I think that's very much tied with the parking ratio discussion. Making sure to add the sightline triangles for the site driveway where it meets Old Upton Street. I don't believe they were on the current site plan, but they can easily be added, and I don't see any issues with obtaining them. I think it'd be helpful just to show them on the plan to make sure that the proposed landscaping is outside those areas or kept low, etc. Some of the details within the plan package, I think the mounting height of the sign was shown at 5 feet, but based on the state and federal regulations, they should be a minimum of 7 feet. It's really to get above snowbanks. And so anybody walking in the area doesn't, you know, hit their head against the bottom of the sign. So it's a standard. They have identified a single dumpster facility between buildings 2 and 3. I would imagine that just operationally they'll likely need more, so I would encourage the applicant to try to find some other convenient locations for dumpsters around the site. And similar to the truck sweep comment, just to make sure that the refuse truck can get in and around without a problem. Overall, I do like the layout of the site. I think there are very few dead-end areas, so I think there is good circulation in and around the different parking areas in those terraces that they're creating on the hill as part of the development. One of the aspects, and I think it dovetails with the school bus shelter at the bottom, but just general ADA and AAB access from the different residential buildings down to the public street network. You know, it's my opinion based on the number of projects that they'll need to satisfy that to get down the hill unless they seek a waiver and obtain a waiver from the AAB and or the local accessibility reviewer, because there are some pretty extreme grades, you know, on the site driveway. So if the sidewalk follows those driveway grades, you know, it would be in excess of 5% for the longer stretches of sidewalk, but it's also not unobtainable by having a meandering sidewalk that can make up that grade as it goes down the hill. But it's something that they can review either to design the sidewalk facilities on site to meet those requirements or to seek a waiver because of, you know, a hardship given the existing topography. The parking discussion itself. So the ratio that the applicant's currently proposing is at 1.68 parking spaces per unit. You know, and that's based on the 152 residential units and the total of 256 proposed spaces. We would typically see and or recommend, and similar to the comment that I provided at 59 Pleasant Street, that in my experience in the suburban environment, that it's typically helpful to have in excess of 1.75, because although they satisfy the 85th percentile parking demand based on ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, by a handful of vehicles, you know, that considers a wealth of different types of sites, you know, in rural, suburban, and urban settings for the low-rise residential structures. But as you focus more on the types of developments that are in a location like the project is, we would typically see an actual demand of something that would be around 1.75 or so. And understanding that is considerably lower than what the ordinance would suggest. That's been my experience as far as the practical needs that would satisfy peak demand in this type of environment. So with that in mind, to try to handle, I think it would end up being like another 16 or 17 spaces. There are different opportunities to be able to introduce those around the site. Some, particularly I think it was near building 2, where there might be different areas that are somewhat level, others that might be along the main driveway, but that in certain sections gets steep. Ultimately, I think they're close. And if they are unable to satisfy that, I would recommend, that there could be other TDM measures, transportation demand management measures, to try to reduce car trips, and knowing that some folks might opt to use transit, like the commuter rail station, that would be a way of trying to mitigate some of those parking needs if there was a shuttle system that would go out there, it could be something that they sponsor or something that they work with a transportation management association to try to do. Ultimately, I think it's a well laid out project. I think there's some fine tuning to do, some I's to dot, T's to cross, and there's a process for them to go through with the state. But overall, they're well on their way to being able to have a good project from a transportation perspective.
Questions or comments from the board?
Question.
Yep.
Does this board have the ability to grant a waiver related to the
Slope of the sidewalk?
the Disabilities Act?
No, that'd be from the state, the access board.
Other thoughts or comments?
We have three questions from someone in the public. I'll share the screen so everybody can see it. Hold on.
Well, while you're doing that, Mr. Yeomans?
Yeah, I just have a question regarding the suggestion at the end, the, transportation. It's providing a service to get to from the apartment to the train station. I mean, you could be a doomed person at that train station now waiting to get home. The experience that I've had, it's, you take the car to the train station and you park at the train station. So I question whether that is even something that would be, credible to be considered.
Certainly, it takes a certain level of multiple developments that could try to do something that would be effective and routine and convenient. And I think the applicant would more appropriately try to identify more parking. I only throw that out there as an option to explore in the event that becomes challenging. But I agree with you that it can be done well, and it can also be done very poorly where it's not a convenient option and people are forced to use their cars, even if it's only, whatever it is, 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. So, but I would recommend first that the applicant try to explore getting more parking on the site. Or I should say, providing a higher ratio.
Mr. Thomas has his hand up.
Yeah, Chair. Just had a question on the commuting arrangements, right? Because people coming out of this apartment most likely are going towards Boston. And you could go to the Grafton station or you could go to the Westboro station. And one of the things to go to the Westboro station, you take a right on 140 and in about 150 feet, you're taking a left back up through Meadowbrook. is there a concern over there because you're taking a left and then a right, and then in the evening you're taking a right and then back left, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Through the chair, I think that is certainly a potential route. You know, and I think that there may be times, you know, as people are using apps like Waze or Google Maps or others, and I grew up on the Upton side of Hopkinton, and there were folks that would commute to try to bypass West Main Street in Hopkinton as you go up and over the hill. For those that are trying to get to 495, where you can take back roads that would go by my childhood home on Pond Street to try to parallel. And part of that route would be starting near, I think it's Millbrook, to try to bypass some busier sections of Upton and or Hopkinton. But I think that that's a one-off depending on whatever acute congestion may be occurring. But if they're going to the station too, I think there will be some trips that will certainly do that. I just don't see it being the predominant trend, and I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do send trips exactly that way, right onto 140, left onto Meadowbrook, and even with the trips that we have analyzed, it shouldn't be a problem. We're not seeing a backup from one intersection into the other. So it has been looked at. I guess that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you.
And I do think DOT will look at those aspects as well.
Okay.
So I have 4 questions from a neighbor, Ethel Jaggy. So her 4 questions are: does this take into consideration that more people are working from home, as far as the number of cars coming in and out? And then her next question is: I would believe that with more people working from home, the traffic pattern would not be normal 7 to 9 a.m. and 5 to 6 p.m. Then her last comment was: taking into consideration that that's working from home, and parents are being home and having more flexibility, the normal timings of commuters has changed. There is no longer a 9 to 5 schedule. With more flexibility in schedules, it seems that there would be more traffic throughout the day, so the traffic flow cannot be based on our old driving patterns.
Respond to those, Mr. Chair, that
Absolutely, please do.
it is based on the best and most recent data available. So as we've reviewed the report that GPI has prepared, to be able to confirm those things, and what I would say is that any deviations for things like working from home more or distributing traffic throughout the course of the day would only lessen the project-related impacts during the peak hours, which would mean that the study would be considered more conservative rather than less. So it's the exact way that I would prepare the study if I was doing it. And there is conservatism within the analyses where essentially we're looking at the worst case. So what she's prepared and what I've reviewed is more or less the worst 15 minutes of the morning peak hour and the worst 15 minutes of the evening peak hour. So if that traffic gets further distributed throughout the day than that, then the situation is only better.
Yep. Thank you. So one comment I have, I heard you mention 16 or 17 additional spots. I think that would get us to 1.75.
That was my assessment, yes.
Yeah, and this board, I think on just about every 40B has wanted 2, which would mean another 30 or so spots, but, you know, so I guess to the applicant, this did come up at the last meeting. I mean, has there been any movement there? Has there been ideas of where we can add some spots, get some more parking?
Yeah, the short answer is yeah. We've without making major wholesale layout changes, we've been able to work productively on some minor tweaks that result in yielding more parking. Our goal, we believe, is going to be very hard to get to your number of 2, because I know you've said that in the past, and that's been our goal. But it's going to be difficult, to be honest. But our goal is to get somewhere between the 175 and the 2, and I think we'll get there. So some things we're considering with the layout changes, just because it might also help address some upcoming questions. Big things that came up at the last meeting is, recreation area. So we're working all of that stuff into these minor layout tweaks.
Yep.
Even some basic stuff like this leasing office and parking area, and then this space here. And one of the benefits of these layout and plan updates is the plan we submitted assumes that all of these buildings are the larger style building proposed, but you'll see on the plan revision that 4 out of these 6 buildings are the smaller size because they don't have the 3-bedroom units. So the benefit of shrinking the building footprint had provided opportunities for a little bit elbow room, some breathing room. So, the reconfiguration of this area presents opportunities where we're contemplating not offering these garages because the parking spaces we gain is significant, and I think we need to. Also, not having the garages provides recreation opportunities in this green space where the garage buildings are, and the revised plan also shows we've survey located existing trails throughout the property, most of which are on the land to be donated, but some actually cross the wetland. It's actually an existing footbridge. So conveniently where that's located, the parking up here that could go in this paved area, if we get rid of the garages, conveniently provides access to the trails. So there's a lot of positive things that we're anxious to share. We're just incorporating Graves engineering comments, text comments, and probably most importantly out of everything is, input from the board. What does the board, in favor of or kind of oppose, especially some of these things that Mass DOT is going to have an opinion on. So those sorts of things. We're close, and we knew we'd be coming tonight to talk about this sort of stuff. So timing was okay, but that's where we're at.
So then the other question I have, has the fire truck movement through, has that been done?
It's been
Verified?
We've done it, but fortunately Heather has much better software for that than we do. So she's going to prepare it. She's just waiting for any layout tweaks from us, and we'll share them.
It just seems, as I'm looking at it, the layman looking at it, it just seems like both of those ends of the long parking lot, so it just seems like that would be a really difficult place to bring the ladder truck around and through it. I would think that they're going to want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, does that, as it's written now, can the ladder truck get through there? If there's cars parked in those spots? And
Yes, and I can tell you that because we have an almost identical portions of these layouts with the space and the radiuses and the distances on both of these on a project of Eastland's under construction in Auburn.
Okay.
And the Auburn fire captain is brutal. I mean that in the nicest way possible. He is. He's really putting us to the test. So far, we're passing.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that, but we will demonstrate that.
And Mr. Chair, that's something that we can review once available.
Yep.
As a follow-up to one of your questions, will the increase in parking ratio alter any of the peak hours traffic assessments?
No, parking and trip generation don't intertwine.
Oh, okay.
I know everyone says, "Oh my gosh, there's going to be 100 units and 100 people are going to leave at once," but that's not what happens with traffic. People leave at different times, have to wait for kid drop off or whatever it may be. So, no, the parking ratio has nothing to do with what the site will generate.
Got it, thanks.
Mr. Yeomans?
Are there any statistics relative to visitor parking for projects? Any
No, not that I'm aware of.
ratios?
I think it's really just trying to have some practical space for those that would be coming, and knowing that it doesn't have to be necessarily in front of each building, but it could be in one of these outlying areas, whether it's near the leasing office or somewhere else that people can, stash a friend or a visitor's car, to kind of know the place to go for that type of need. But if there's, ultimately that's all kind of baked into that parking ratio. So if they provide enough spaces, you really don't have to do anything,
I think your consideration of doing away with the garages, I I personally don't feel that a garage should be available at the expense of the masses, that are going to live there. And the other thing is, and we've had previous debates on visitor parking and previous 40Bs. It's almost like the assumption that, because you live in a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom apartment, you're not going to have a visitor. And, everybody has visitors. Some are just coming for dinner and drinks.
Yep.
And some are coming for an overnight stay. So I think the garage is something that I know you're considering it to create the aisle to the recreation area and to create more parking spaces. I think that, and I understand the impact of the economics of that, but and I've looked at the garage situation over in Shrewsbury by Market Basket, and they have, I've inquired about those garages were, gobbled up real fast. But I think the garage is at the expense of the greater number of people that are going to be living there with their families, newlyweds. And how many 3-bedrooms are in?
From memory, I believe there was either 16 or 18.
It's 10%, I think.
Right,
3
exactly.
bedrooms.
It's just
So,
a hair over.
Yeah, rounded up, right?
A 3-bedroom is encouraging a family to live there.
Right.
And that's why the 40B comprehensive permit laws dictate that percentage of 3-bedroom. And, I think in my opinion, the garages should be eliminated throughout, and more parking should be provided, whether it and some additional parking and then some additional recreation space accommodating, again, because there's as I recall, there's not an immediate play area, to this.
Right.
And we've had serious debates on Prentice Place. As you get in towards the city more, people can sneak and park somewhere or grab a lot overnight. None of this is available here. I mean, the people are going to park. If they rent here, that's where they're going to park. If you visit them for a quick drink or an overnight, then that's where they're going to park. And they're not going to be shuttling down to the Stop and Shop to leave their car overnight. So.
Well, one thing I hope I can provide you some assurance, because Eastland is gonna, own and operate this. I think the last thing that they want, because we've talked about it, is insufficient parking. That's a real problem when you're owner of a project, and the solution is to demolish garages that you built that you wish you didn't. So it's something that has been discussed a lot with them too. They want to make sure that the parking for their customers is more than adequate.
Thank you.
Yeah, you could provide enough parking so that you're basically full, right? But you've met your demand and your tenants are happy. But in my opinion, that's not enough, right? I think we need to make sure that there is plenty of extra, so that when you do have, a few people at the same time having the extra visitors over, that you don't have people that are parking on the end of the islands and that sort of stuff. I think that's really where you kind of get into a problem. So that's really kind of where I push for more. And I've seen a few different developments that, quite frankly, I think you drive in them, you can tell that there's just not enough parking. Right, the minute you drive in them, you can see it, you can tell, because just the way things are packed in. So that's really what I want to avoid, and traditionally this board is trying to avoid is not having enough extra parking so that there's no question. But then we're New England, you add in the snowstorms and you lose parking spots with snowstorms. No matter what you do, you're going to lose parking spots. You know the drill. Peter, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was going to, are there statistic numbers on how many packages get delivered to complexes like this every day? Has anybody started that stuff yet?
Somebody probably has. I don't have
I'm-
data,
I'm-
but all I know is it comes up on every project that we work on and every project that we review. So, but it's an excellent question. I don't know if you've had.
I mean, you got Amazon, UPS, FedEx. How many hours are each truck gonna spend in there a day?
Yeah, I don't know any specific data. All I do know is that the data includes trips of landscapers and mailman and all that in the developments. I mean, so they're included in the trip generation numbers, but it's not broken out. So
I mean, each truck is gonna stop at each building, and I assume they must take 2 or 3 packages at a time and plunk it in front of everybody's door or whatever, but it takes time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why we recommend some areas for pull-off.
You did mention that, yeah.
It's an everyday need. So.
Yeah, through the chair. For a community of this size, packages will probably be centralized to the leasing office. There's a couple of different companies that have these systems, whether it be lockers or just a locked room where all of the packages go into. You know, they get sorted by last name and that sort of thing to avoid having the trucks snaking around through all buildings.
So that way they all have to stop every day, and their mail would go there too, probably, or?
Correct, yep.
Correct.
And they'd each have a bin or whatever?
Yeah, there's a few different ways that it's done.
So we need a lot of parking spots in front of that building.
Which you'll be happy to see, you know, the reconfiguration of because, you know, these parking spaces, we need to account for that. And
Yeah.
we're learning some things with the Auburn project, which they said is under construction.
Right.
And it's great, the things that we're learning are
It's like the Home
Where,
Depot,
where is that project?
Home Depot lockers
off of Albert Street,
for
Route 20.
anything you
towards
order
Oxford,
online. It goes to the locker.
20 West.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's either a
On
locker
Route
or
20?
just a locked room.
Take a right on Albert Street.
Oh, Albert Street.
Yeah.
Off of Route 20.
Is that after Cumberland's?
Right before the traffic light before Cumberland. Well, there's a light at Cumberland, but then the traffic light before Cumberland. After the 12 comes into 20.
Yeah.
And then they combine and they split again. But
Yeah.
in that joined area of 12 and 20.
Oh,
If
Albert
you're
Street?
driving west, you'll take a right on Albert Street.
Oh, before Harley Davidson, probably?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a street there, huh? Is that a new street?
Albert Street is not new.
Okay.
Albert
Probably
Street
been-
extension is new, and Jeff's familiar with it.
We reviewed it for Auburn. You actually go through a subdivision to get to the 40B. We didn't review the 40B, but nevertheless, Albert Street was reconstructed at some expense by Eastland, and pull in through the, I don't know, 6 lots, 10 lots, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the 40B's in the back, up on the hill. And I know where it is, but I've never.
Yeah, I used to live a half mile down the road from that, and I just don't remember that street, you know, in between that section. I just don't even remember the street there. It's been like a real inconsequential side street. Okay.
It's easy to drive by. I didn't know it until
Oh,
first.
I drove by it probably hundreds and hundreds of times when I was living there. Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry. Brian.
Again, that's 2.
3 strikes, I'm out. I can go home. With respect to the parking ratio, I want the board to know that, and having worked with the number 40Bs here, yes, 2.25 spaces per dwelling unit is the zoning bylaw requirement. 2 spaces per dwelling unit seems to be a magic number that's worked on other projects. In working with the ITE parking generation table, which was cited in the application, the 85th percentile is an important criterion to meet because 85% of the time that the parking demand is that or less. Unfortunately, ITE has a lot of parking information, 119 studies for low rise for the Monday through Friday peak demands of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. They've got 6 studies for the Saturday. That number was a little bit higher than the Monday through Friday demand, but there's only 6 studies on Saturday, and there's only 1 study on Sunday. They couldn't even report an 85th percentile. They had to report an average. My point is, my inference of the data for both the low rise and the mid rise is that there might actually be more parking demand on the weekends. I'm trying to weigh people go away versus people come home, and you know, the highest number of studies is for the Monday through Friday. So I'm kind of on the fence. how much extra parking does there really need to be for what is perceived by me at least to be a higher demand on the weekends? So that said, when I look at the revised parking and still based upon 152 dwelling units, or however we look at the new ratio, I'm gonna be trying to figure out what's a comfortable extra number of fluff just to make sure we get the 85th percentile right. That still gets us up to 0 extra parking spaces. And then on top of that, how many parking spaces should be scattered throughout the site to try to, if someone comes in, they gotta park over here, but the unit is over here. That's gonna be a renting issue if it happens on a frequent basis. And I don't have those numbers of what I personally think is a good fluff factor, if you will, to make it accurate 85th percentile on the limited data from ITE. And I also don't know what the magic number is is it 2 spaces throughout the site? Is it 25 spaces throughout the site? I don't have that yet, but that's how I'm gonna look at it. So what I'm getting at is if the parking demand is, the last ratio was 1.68 per dwelling unit, and we're looking at 2 per dwelling unit, what's the difference, and is that enough parking spaces? It's a different way to look at it. It's kind of following more statistics than anything else, but I just think it's worthy of that kind of look at as well, to get a comfort level of is there enough parking? And then lastly, I know that, the zoning bylaw talks to reserve parking. Quite frankly, I'm not so inclined to recommend that there be reserve parking, but I'd be looking at, case in point to Steve O'Connell's discussion earlier of the parking garages, what space might be available if they need a little extra parking later on? Is it easily built, or is it difficult to build because of either topography or other uses that are taking up the space?
Yeah, so I mean, that's actually something I was gonna say is, our bylaw does allow for the idea of reserve, right? So, if you're not gonna make it to 2, then maybe also do some discussion of if there's a problem where you could expand.
Mr. Chairman, in the past, for all types of uses, but the idea of banked parking, reserve parking, is one that has, kind of an environmental stewardship piece to it too.
Absolutely.
So, there are ways that you can fashion conditions that if the applicant could show that they could make the 2.0 per unit, you could not build it all as long as the stormwater was accommodating all that, impervious, et cetera.
Yep.
Then you could have it be a test on the applicant that after the occupancy of the first 4 buildings, they do a parking study to verify the ratios and then determine if that bank parking should ultimately be built prior to the last couple of buildings. So there's a very logical way that you can do that,
Yeah.
that doesn't automatically invite a bunch of paved area, but can be done on a site-specific analysis basis.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And, we've never done that. Like, I think we've generally on every 40B gotten 2. We're really darn close to it. But that's an excellent idea. And to some extent, I kind of did that at Prentice Place, right? They have one building, and I've stopped in there a couple times now and done car counts just to see how it's going to go. And the concern there is we don't want people parking in across the street in the park. And now they've since kind of roped off that field as well, so hopefully it doesn't happen. But it's that's an excellent idea. It's an excellent idea. Yep.
So, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head or not, but how far is this site from like the post office?
Geez, it's right up the road off of Upton Street over near the Common.
Within
About
a,
a
within a
mile.
half,
Within a mile.
within a half a
I
mile.
drive that all the
I drive
time.
it every day.
So do I.
It's not that
probably
busy. There's
from
hardly-
from Sibley to the post office,
Probably-
probably about a half a
N-
mile to a
Yeah,
mile.
half a mile, yeah, probably.
Right.
It's not that far.
Because the reason I bring that up, the mention of sidewalk study, there's the DPW site
The old
that,
DPW site, yeah.
that will be mixed use, right?
Eventually, it's proposed.
We hope.
Well, but with
Wish they would do
potential
something.
retail, there's Cumberland Farms, there's you know, everything else
The fire
on the
station.
common.
Wongs.
And I could see you know, pedestrian traffic back and forth that way. Eventually, I don't know. But be interesting to see, I guess, what a sidewalk study would entail.
It will be a absolute question in the state process, when they go through the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act process, where MassDOT chimes in, that is these days with complete streets and connectivity for bikes, peds, cars, trucks, everything. That will be an
They're very
absolute,
familiar.
an absolute question that will be raised, and knowing that that's state highway on 140. The state's has been, over the past decade, really trying to chip off in trying to add sidewalk facilities on, you know, within their state highway. But sometimes they might look to applicants to help them along the way by doing a segment or assisting with design or doing other things that help them get to that goal. But I can tell you that it never does not come up in the state process, right?
That is true.
Yeah, but I think it would be an asset to the project to
Yeah.
be able, you know, to walk to retail of some sort.
Brings up the question in my mind of how far is it to walk to the library parking lot?
Well,
That's basically.
that's the
About a mile.
Sethel Jaggy,
people
Brooke
the same,
just
yeah.
said it's a half a mile to the post office from Sibley,
From Sibley,
from
Yeah.
Sibley.
which is,
Tenth, 2/10 from the site.
is it
Yeah.
2/10?
Got rough
About that.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yep. And then about another 1/10 of a mile to the library from the post office.
Mr. Chair, I drove the section just before the meeting, just to look for conceptual feasibility of something like that too. And there's a lot of open country drainage too, where when you introduce a sidewalk and curbing, you know, there's a lot of drainage work that has to occur.
Yep.
So, it is a considerable distance, and that was why I shied away from a recommendation for an absolute connection versus more of the fair share, similar to the approach on Pleasant Street, because the type of investment in my mind would be far greater than what this individual project could do.
Yep. So, I see 10 Q&A, so,
It's all from Ethel Jaggy. A lot of it is about accommodating the delivery trucks, safety for residents and children. Look more seriously into the delivery, how many trips per day, because it's not just one. It's Chewy, Walmart, BJ's, Instacart, UPS, Amazon, FedEx, Mail, furniture deliveries.
okay, so to that point, that's why we have professionals and they use the science and those are really the only numbers that we can go with. Okay, what else?
And then the other one was any common recreational areas in the development for a playground or an outdoor garden area.
We've already talked about passive recreation space and they're working on that.
And then it was just the different miles from.
Yep, okay, thank
so
you.
It's all there.
Okay, so hopefully you can clear those out.
I'm doing that as we speak.
Excellent. Now, is there anyone participant-wise who has got a hand up or anything? I know you got you doing a few things at once here.
Getting better at doing it. Nope, that's it.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other thoughts? I mean, so at this point, there's a number of recommendations from tech. You folks are gonna take those, incorporate them in. We'll talk about that at the next meeting. Anything else traffic-wise you wanna talk about?
I'd just like to get some clarification from the board. The things that would definitely fall in the Mass DOT's kind of court. Do you have an opinion, or do you just defer to Mass DOT? I mean, you could have an opinion, and it might not matter. You know, I guess I would just like to know, because we have to deal with Mass DOT. It might be helpful to say that the town's not in favor, the town's in favor. Plus, I also think the project would benefit if we had one of those site visits with, you know, Chief Crepo, DPW.
We definitely should have that, but that would be after I would think you have a proposal, right? Similar to what we did with Pleasant Street.
Exactly, yeah.
As far as, you know, I don't know that we have an opinion on the Mass state thing. I guess I had in my mind that it really was kind of up to them, you know. And
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, just wanna,
Mr. Chair, they will listen to the community.
Sure.
So, I think, to the applicant's suggestion, I think if the board has particular thoughts, for what they would like to have explored, even if they can't say we want this absolutely, I think they would be open to hearing suggestions because you folks drive it every day, so I think having the insight and or the things that you can see for trends, travel trends, they will consider those things as part of their review.
So the only thing that's coming to my mind is I think it would be great if there was sidewalks going all the way up to the center. Now, other than that, I don't know if anyone, and I don't even think I'm trying to refresh my mind now what you'd recommended, but I don't think there was nothing coming out of your review that was making any recommendations in that direction.
No, I other than it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
And then I think that, that is where I think as GPI and the applicant approach DOT, that type of keen interest that the town has in that shared responsibility between the state and applicant or applicants to go do that, I think would be important for them to hear.
Yep. How do we make them hear it?
You could send them a letter. You could, you can ask that somebody from DPW, or we could even do it if you want us to, be part of a coordination meeting.
So, all right, so
As
at some
the-
point you folks need to get together with the state for this review.
you would submit,
Is the town notified of this and solicited for input solicited, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So when that gets submitted, it will go out to all the boards, zoning board, planning board. Basically, everybody in town gets a notice. Hey, this was submitted.
from me,
For
right,
me,
from me.
from me.
yeah, not an
Exactly.
access permit
Not
to
the
DOT.
access.
Right.
But the MEPA process, which
Right.
would
Yes.
involve DOT.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
does the town have any funds for sidewalks? Because this is on a state highway,
It's state.
so you can't do anything. Yeah, all right.
Like
I didn't know if
just
they
did-
had,
like what they just did in South Grafton on Main Street.
Yeah.
That was the state. road.
yeah.
So
right.
they added the sidewalks and
Yeah,
everything. That
okay.
was through them.
It would be great. I agree. It'd be nice to have sidewalks.
Mr. Chairman, there is another potential route to the common. That would be Sibley Street to Old Upton
Old
to
Upton
to South Street.
South Street, yeah.
I believe there's sidewalks on South Street down to, is it
Bruce,
Bullard? Bruce.
Yeah.
thank you.
Down to Bruce, yeah.
That's a long walk.
that is a long
require-
walk.
Agreed.
That is a long walk.
It's a hilly walk.
It's a long drive.
It's a long hilly walk.
Wait a minute, I think they're up to, Sibley now. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
the
think.
sidewalk comes out from McGill. So it starts at McGill, Upton, and Sibley. And goes up.
To Sibley.
So it just need to be
But it doesn't go any
done,
further than that.
No.
just need to be done the whole length of Sibley and,
Yeah.
And then
Which is- that's
Old
a run.
Upton to Bruce, or a portion thereof to, again,
Yeah.
build the sidewalk system over time.
I think
No,
we're
there's,
getting way
there's a
beyond.
sidewalk on Old Upton to Bruce.
right.
So you come out McGill.
From Sibley to Bruce.
So you
there-
come out McGill, and you take the left on Old Upton.
They're on
There's
the
a
right.
sidewalk
On the right, isn't it?
on the left.
On the
I
left?
didn't know
On the
that.
left. So it goes there, and it goes. You cross Bruce, and then you're on South Street, and then there's the sidewalk that goes all the way up to the center of town.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've walked it many times.
The
it's a
point
nice big
being,
hill.
the point being is the development here is a pedestrian generator. Some people
Yeah.
will want to walk, and the McGill project in itself is a nice. It's 1.9 miles long of all sidewalks.
And a lot of people do park up there and walk
Yep, absolutely.
all the time.
Just to set expectations about this word sidewalk, there's also something you see a lot under construction on state projects called a shared use path. And, it's meant for, walking pedestrians and biking pedestrians. And, to me, obviously DOT would have the final say, but this stretch of 140 kind of screams for a shared use path as opposed to a sidewalk, which would introduce drainage problems, add expense because of the curbing, but you'd have a grass buffer and then a shared use path or a painted buffer and a shared use path. But just to not just be narrow-minded on a sidewalk
Yep.
with
Yeah.
traditional curbing and that sort of thing.
That's it. Okay. Anything else for traffic? I want to move on to Mr. Allen and Ecotech. That review? Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good evening. Arthur Allen from Ecotech, wetland environmental scientist.
Welcome.
I've reviewed the project files, plans. I did a site walk on August 24th, and I prepared and submitted a comment letter dated August 25th, 2023. Reviewed the application design relative to the Grafton Wetland Bylaw and regulations with a focus on potential water quality impacts. And this project will be subject to the stormwater general permit under the US EPA NIPD's program. They'll have to prepare and submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan with the associated monitoring and reporting requirements. They're also subject to the DEP stormwater management standards, and they've submitted a signed and stamped DEP checklist showing that they meet the standards. It's also my understanding there's no on-site sewage treatment. They'll be using the municipal wastewater. Obviously, I'm not a professional engineer, so I'm not qualified to review or opine on the details of the stormwater system, but it appears that they can build this project without deleterious impacts to surface or groundwater quality based on compliance with those standards. I considered the wildlife habitat impacts and wildlife displacement relative to the Grafton Wetland Bylaw and regulations, and the development site is largely appears to have been probably a horse farm at one point with a residence. Most of the development area is historically cleared of trees. It's kind of overgrown pasture and paddocks. The perimeters are wooded, especially the inner buffer zone areas adjacent to the wetland. And those are really arguably the most important from a wildlife perspective. In addition, the portion of the site that they're proposing to donate to the town, so that would be basically the easterly portion of the site. That portion is actually, it's a combination of wooded upland and wetland with minimal disturbance. Closed canopy, overstory, mixed hardwood forest. Arguably, probably the best habitat on the property is in that portion of the site that's proposed to be donated. So I certainly support that and would say that that has the highest potential for wildlife habitat value. Also, they're proposing encroaching into the 25-foot inner wetland buffer zone in 3 different places. Again, that the 25-foot buffer on this site is certainly valuable for its ability to protect the wetland. During and after construction, it has fairly high habitat value, and I'd strongly recommend that they make every attempt to revise the work limits to preserve that minimum 25-foot buffer setback. That would be certainly valuable, especially on this site. I reviewed the stormwater wetland bylaw waiver requests, and obviously the fee waivers should not have a deleterious effect. They're requesting a waiver from conservation review under the stormwater management bylaw, and they requested the zoning board be the administering authority. And I'm assuming, obviously, the zoning board has capability both on the board and through their consultants to review the stormwater plan. So I assume this waiver will not have a deleterious effect. The 25-foot wetland setback waiver is probably my biggest concern in terms of the waiver requests, and I definitely recommend preserving that 25-foot buffer if at all possible. Reviewed the entire site for the accuracy of the wetland delineation. They did not submit any documentation pertaining to the delineation. That's typically what's required through conservation review. But that being said, I was able to complete my review. Some of the wetland flags are missing or unreadable, but I was able to approximate their locations, and was only had one comment on the existing delineations, where I recommended connecting wetland flag 20 to 23, just to avoid an area of previously undelineated wetland between those flags. And I also noted an additional isolated vegetated wetland so the southwest of house number 108, that's in the donation area. But it is an area shown as having been delineated on the plans. I actually flagged out that area with 7 flags, E1 to E7, and I'd recommend that, if they're going to show the delineations in that part of the site, that they would add that. I recommend that they would add that additional isolated wetland, which is regulated under the Grafton Wetland Bylaw. And so, yeah, so there's no other resource areas present on the property, no perennial streams with associated riverfront areas, no other buffer zones from offsite wetlands that encroach into the site. There's no mapped flood zones or mapped rare species habitat or certified potential vernal pools on the site. And that's the extent of my comments. Thank you.
So, so forgive me because I hadn't had a chance to see this and read this until this evening. So really, the main recommendation that you have really concerns the 25-foot setback. Really, everything else, I think, basically everything else is, okay or acceptable, what have you. Did I summarize it too simply, or is that pretty much it?
That's correct. Just had a couple of, fairly minor revisions to the wetland delineations, and then most importantly, the 25-foot setback waivers, which I do not support.
Yep. Okay. Understood. Other comments from the board? Questions? Thoughts?
Who put in the 25-foot stakes?
We did by survey.
You did?
Yeah, we wanted to view it ourselves. We thought it would be beneficial potentially for others. And if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I just can stay a few more things. So I did mark on the plan here the wetland delineation that Mr. Allen was referring to. So in other words, he would just like to connect flag 20 to 23. No objection. The isolated
Instead of what?
Well, instead of coming around like it was flagged, down and in, it's just going to go right across. It doesn't really have much of a, an impact for projection of the buffer zone. But regardless, if that's what he believes the wetland is, no dispute from us. An isolated area down here, which he said he flagged with 7 pink flags. We'll locate that by survey. We'll add it to the revised plan. What you haven't seen yet.
Steve, closer to.
I'm sorry. What you haven't seen yet as a result of the last meeting when Attorney Hill suggested we file an ANRAD to confirm the wetland boundary is the wetland scientist for the applicant had gone out to the site and he delineated the other side of the resource area in the donation area Yeah, he extended the flagging, just at the bottom of the page here, he extended the flagging. You know, we kind of show a wetland boundary, but he extended the flagging, so that was added to the revised plan, which you'll see. And then in conjunction with the layout changes I described before, we're getting everything out of the 25-foot buffer. We would just like to kind of get your opinion where the stormwater basin needs to discharge the water. The pipe that comes out of that basin from the outlet control structure, very close to the entrance of the culvert that goes under Old Upton Street. It's almost unavoidable, in my opinion. Not a wetland scientist, but I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, that's probably the least valuable spot of the wetland because it's already going in a culvert under Old Upton Street. But all of the other areas, even the grading for the basin, we've been able to make some changes to as part of our stormwater revisions. So it really would just be the outlet for that pipe. We could look at replanting that area. Obviously not too close to the pipe, but we could replant that area. And I just didn't know if, I know you would reserve your comments until you saw something more formal, but just wanted you to know what we were working on and if that sounded reasonable.
I mean, to this layperson, it sure seems like that's, for lack of better terms, the least valuable of the three.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Understand the benefit of the 25-foot buffer
Yeah.
relative to the function of the wetland and shading impacts and habitat value. So we were able to move everything else out of the buffer zone along the whole stretch.
And the disturbance would be a pipe crossing that section.
Yeah, right. Just coming out of the basin, being, projecting into the 25-foot buffer.
Oh, discharging into it?
Yeah. Well, the pipe itself, the outfall of the pipe itself would be in the buffer zone, and the water leaving the pipe would go down into the intermittent stream into the culvert under Old Upton Street. But again, you'll see that on a revised plan. It's very fair for you to reserve your opinion until you see it, but I just wanted you to know where we were at. It's hard with the elevations necessary to get the water to discharge to not be in that portion of the 25, but like I said, very close to the street there.
Mr. Yeomans?
Have you removed all of the other impacts?
Yes.
Into the 25-foot buffer?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Where was the area that had the biggest problem for you to eliminate that intrusion? Was there a particular area?
That's hard to say. We're in the 25-foot a little bit here. We're in the 25-foot. We're up against it there. We're into it with this parking area for the leasing office, and that whole area is being reworked, so that is able to come out. Those weren't that difficult to do, which I'm happy about. This area is obviously the most challenging, which is why I'm asking you or letting you know that that's really going to be a difficult one for us to deal with. But
That makes sense.
we moved the grading of the basin out. There may be, again, I prefer that you see it on paper, but I wanted to explain that to you. That's where we're at.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Okay. No, I had also commented on the matter of encroachment within the 25-foot buffer zone with the intention of removing the grading and removing the tree removal, eliminating the tree removal within the 25-foot buffer, eliminating any disturbance, and maintaining the tree canopy within 25% buffer. I didn't get into that level of detail of speaking to the outlet pipe, but from an engineering perspective in conveying water without erosion, I would not have an issue with that from my perspective.
Yep. Mr. Waller?
Where we were discussing removing the garages as an option,
Yeah.
is that, would there be potential encroachment to extend a parking lot down into that?
We would stay out of the 25-foot buffer. I don't know if that would be a parking lot per se. It's something we want to explore, probably starting tomorrow. But what's more visible on this plan.
Right, I take it back,
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah, so when you take the garages away, you actually just get more parking spaces on that pavement than what the spaces the garages provide. You actually pick up maybe about 6 spaces, so 6 spaces is pretty valuable when you're trying to get.
When you're looking for 40.
You can always give up a building. A big building.
No comment.
Well, you're gonna love my next statement, and once I saw where that 25-foot zone is, for some reason the other picture makes it look like you got a lot of space there where those
that's what I
garages
thought, too.
are. So I was thinking nice passive recreation area and things like that, but there isn't space there.
Well,
But
it
what-
might be more than you realize. Those garages are 20
feet.
20 or 25.
Yeah.
25 feet deep. Then we do have a swale that goes in the back, and we're reworking that. So the recreation area that would fill that area is about 4,500 square feet.
Well, what would be a nice recreation area is where you've got that leasing office.
Yep.
Eliminate the leasing office, move the leasing office into one of the units. Yes, you lose a unit, but move the leasing office into one of those buildings, get rid of the leasing office building, and now suddenly you do have space, and maybe you have to even pick up more parking space.
Yeah, so what we worked on just as recently as today was flipping the leasing office location with this parking, because the leasing office here does not extend to the 25-foot buffer. Putting the parking where the leasing office is allows us to make this parking almost triple in size. And because we have a smaller building here now, like I described before, we pick up a lot of area here. So that's also potential rec area and expanded parking. The leasing office is important, and we should probably clarify, because it's not just a leasing office. That's where the mail and the Amazon package room would all be. So parking is important there. So I'm pretty happy with some of the concepts we've developed. Just need to kind of expand them.
Okay. Somebody had their hand up on the board here. Mr. Yeomans?
An additional question of Jeff. Is there a reasonable alternative to the flow of water from the detention basins than what is proposed?
Very interesting point. One of my comments was the number of analysis points and whether or not the frontage along Old Upton going to Upton Street or Upton Road, I forget which, but anyways, most of the runoff that goes to the frontage goes southbound on 140, if you will.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas the stream itself goes northbound across 140. The two eventually converge in the wetland system up gradient of Silver Lake, but they are two analysis points, and they have to be looked at independently. With respect to having a receiving water to discharge stormwater to, that stream that they're proposing is in fact a valid and from an engineering perspective, it's a point you would normally use. They've just got to be careful with how much water they release and whether or not they still have to release some to that other analysis point that takes it to the southbound part of 140. It's challenging from a hydrology perspective, but when I look at the hydrology and stormwater management standards, make you look at peak rates of runoff at the entrance to the wetlands, so that there's no impact to the wetlands. I had to put that comment out there. At the time I wrote the comment, I didn't know whether or not that stream in fact immediately turned and went southbound along 140, and they were in fact one analysis point. It was the day of the meeting I had gone out there and found otherwise. And do know that the culvert that crosses under Route 140, I think that was about 4 foot diameter. That thing's huge.
That's big.
Yep.
Okay. Other comments or thoughts?
Just one question. How many towns, do most towns have this 25-foot offset? State law, I know, is to the edge of the wetland. And I have a very negative opinion of the 25-foot, because I look at it as a land grab. I've appealed it on my taxes. You just get, because you can't use it. That's like a land taking.
Well, you can with a waiver from the local conservation commission. If there was a local wetland regulation such as the one Grafton has
Right.
that required 25 foot, that's waivable by the commission. But and I serve on a conservation commission and have for about 18 years. It's that inner buffer zone that really does have, unless the site was completely disturbed and neutered years ago and it's overgrown with invasive species, the inner buffer zone especially has value because it's habitat for the wetland species that and whatever that move in and out of the water. It's shading and all that, and I look at with respect to water quality and keeping dissolved oxygen in the water and temperature of the water, the loss of shading, especially on the south side of a wetland, can bring about changes with respect to water quality, potentially dissolved oxygen and so forth, as well as habitat.
But does every town do this?
Many towns do, not all. It's because the Wetlands Protection Act at the state level does not have this requirement. It means that every one of the commissions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has to fight an individual fight over 25 foot, 30 foot.
I mean,
no,
we used to
none
be
whatsoever.
10. Then I think it went to 20.
Our commission has a policy at the state level of 25 feet. We don't have any local bylaws. We've been pretty lucky and pretty effective in enforcing that, even with some of the large warehouse facilities that came to our town. But it's each one can be a battle because there's no hard regulation. So the towns that do have regulation make it a little bit easier for the boards to enforce.
So it sounds like we're not unique, but it's not like everyone has it.
No,
Agreed.
he said
That's a
not
good way to
everybody has
Yeah,
it.
right. Yep. We're not the only one, but it's not everyone.
Be nice to have one law in the state.
You might not like it.
Any other thoughts on Ecotex review? Do we have any?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, no hands up.
Steve has.
Just me, if you're ready.
Nothing on.
Nope.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, Attorney Hill suggested an ANRAD. We were essentially prepared to submit the ANRAD. Ecotech's letter came in. In his letter, he verified the wetland delineation. In fact, he hung additional flags. I would just like maybe Art to opine on whether or not he believes an ANRAD would be necessary. We would be filing a notice of intent very soon, but with his
Sounds like it's done. But go ahead, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I fully agree. I completed the same wetland boundary and site review that I would do for the Conservation Commission under an ANRAD. And I mentioned to Leah Cameron, the conservation agent, that I did not think an ANRAD was necessary because that was covered under my scope. I mean, I needed, in order to understand the site and to opine on the project and the impacts, I needed to review the wetlands, and it's done.
Yep, makes sense. Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? So if we're done with that topic, anything else that you guys want to cover?
Just a question from last time. Did you look into sewer at all for the neighbors?
No.
Okay.
But I will.
You were going, because I know they had suggested tying into the force main, but
Well, I think we've learned that tying into the force main is out.
well,
Right, so-
that was my opinion. I don't.
Canoyer said that. I mean,
Oh.
I know when we were, huh? Yeah.
Okay.
When we did the site visit on Pleasant Street for traffic, it actually did come up.
Oh, he
and,
did
and
say
Paul said, no, we don't allow that.
that's still out then.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's still
I
out.
thought it was.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Anything else? So, Mr. Yeomans?
I have a question looking at the wetlands flagged on the lower side, this is a question of Jeff, and we've had conversations relative to subsurface infiltration on this particular project, considering the number of buildings and potentially capturing that roof runoff. Would that have any effect on the retention or detention basins in the calculations? Again, in a subsurface, this is not in a wellhead protection area. It's zone 2, but it is abutting on the lower side there, on the land that they're donating to the town, to the conservation area. I guess my question in my mind is, what effect would subsurface infiltration capturing the roof runoff, what effect that may have on the stormwater flow that has to go into the detention basin, which flows out through that 4-foot, pipe?
These soils are glacial till, low permeability compared to the Pleasant Street site,
Okay,
and it's harder to get much volume of water infiltrated. They
Okay.
still can do it, and they are proposing it, but it's a whole different, probably roughly an order of magnitude of volume of water, and to have individual roof recharge systems here, similar to what we had discussed on the Pleasant Street site, I don't see a significant benefit to those whatsoever.
okay.
It's just too slow draining. What I see here too is high groundwater throughout the site. That's typical of glacial tills.
It's glacial till.
And it just,
okay.
it makes it difficult in citing where a recharge system could be, so.
Well, thank you. That answered the lingering question in my mind on that.
You're almost not losing much infiltration because of the existing soil conditions as the site lies today.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, then, I think at this point, we're looking to continue, how much, I think it really comes down to how much time you folks want till our next meeting.
Looks like we've been going out about 4 weeks or so. It should
Yeah.
be adequate.
That would be the. that would be
28th?
The 28th. Because the
When-
20
when do we have the next-
21st, You have Pleasant Street on the 21st.
Okay,
Pleasant Street is,
21st of September.
Yes.
how's the 28th sound for people?
What's the date again?
Thursday, the 28th.
I won't
September.
be in, I'm out of the country from the 24th to the.
what day are you looking at? The 28th?
28th.
Bill, is that?
Till when?
Have you missed one of these yet on this one?
Not, no, I just missed
You missed Pleasant.
Street.
the one that was at the library.
That was
Pleasant.
Pleasant. So you'd be okay to miss this one and do
I
a mulligan.
would? Oh.
Technically.
Just saying.
You mean I'd have to watch it?
You'd have to
Yeah.
watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have
Yeah,
to
I'm
watch
out
the
of town
video.
for almost 2
She'll be dialing that travel agent.
Well, I'm out 2 weeks, so.
All right, so let's go for the 28th. So what do we want to do on the 28th? It sounds to me like you'll have some updates and things to present.
Yep. Site civil.
It seems to me that we're at that point where we should be looking at waivers as well.
I don't disagree because I think you're going to find, same applicant, same engineer, different site, but really,
Right, so there's
Many of the same
there's open
waivers.
issue from the last time we went through waivers, but hopefully, so I would think we could be looking at waivers.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know that there's, this has been an easier one to do than the last one. That's why they're basically catching up to each other, but.
Yep.
So at this point, I guess I would entertain a motion to continue case number
898.
898 to September 28th at 7 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, and, we need to do this by roll call. So, Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker votes yes. See you guys on the 28th. Well, actually, we'll see you on the 21st. This we'll see on the 28th.
Yep, no problem.
All right. Mr. Waller, it's your meeting.
All right.
Print my name underneath that or no?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
we need to review the minutes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I actually did redline a number of these, my suggestion is
I will pull them up. Give me 1 second.
that our secretary maybe pull up my red line so people can see them and object or agree or what have you, and then if you've got other comments, obviously.
Yep.
Just want to share that I had set some red lines to the secretary.
Oh, you're welcome.
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night.
It's not letting me share. There we go.
I'll pull up my edits as you go through bills and.
Yeah, I had a couple of edits too, just a little bit, but.
So the first one Bill had were March 16th, but the first set of minutes we have are
First one is what, March 16th?
March 16th. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Jeff.
Good night.
Good night, Jeff.
Is that what you've got there showing red lines? That is, okay.
Those are your red lines.
Yep. Minor edits, well, I think they're all minor edits.
I didn't see anything significant.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of March 16th as amended.
So moved?
Motion made and seconded. Do all of these by roll call vote. Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
You
Yes.
wrote what?
Mr. Yeomans,
The
Yes.
motions.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
You did.
Chairman votes yes.
Good job.
See? There's a circle where it's amended or just trying to get through them tonight, guys.
Yes, we got, yeah. I didn't realize we had so many.
Okay, so the next is 329. Come on, cut through it. Come on, open these.
It's down below. Right now, you're in the email, whereas you opened it as a Word document, so you need to click on the Word document down in here. Down in the task, there you go.
Yeah, but I gotta go on the share the screen and pick that one.
All right, minor edits, I don't think we need to get into why DHCD pulled safe harbor. It's just general lack of progress. I think there's actually some debate about that. I just kind of tightened up the language as far as, safe harbor goes.
Okay.
I have a comment on page 2. Towards the bottom, Karen Swanson's statement. The second bullet. The bridge on Pleasant Street is old, semicolon. Can it hold the additional traffic? Question.
Also at the top,
Karen Swanson.
did he flag it at the top?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Bill's updated
The
those.
second one
Oh, it cannot. Yep, got it.
is old semicolon, can't hold traffic.
Got it.
At the top, the second one down, why not single-family homes instead of apartments? Not the place for apartments? I don't understand.
That was just the comments that were made by the residents, that they would rather have houses on a cul-de-sac versus
Right.
apartments.
I realize that, but it doesn't read like that.
Oh, all right, I'll correct it.
You know, if you.
Yep,
Just drop a semicolon in there.
okay. I can do that.
I know you got a lot of things going over there, but can you just scroll to the second page? Did I make some edits on that?
Yes, you did.
Actually, not on that particular line.
No, but on the other lines you did.
Yeah, so on that page, I just tightened up the bullet that says Vice Chairman informs the public the following. I kind of straightened out what I actually said. I didn't really say assume the project gets built. My point has always been the most productive approach is to assume it will get built and then go from there. So that language that you see there on the screen is just tightening all that up. I think all the other stuff is minor edits that I put in, typos and things like that.
I move that we accept the Wednesday, March 29th, 2023 minutes as amended.
Second.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Huster?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yeah.
Chairman votes yes. Four 27.
Okay, hold on. Get into those.
I read it as is.
A couple on this one.
I move that we accept the minutes of Thursday, April 27th, 2023 as amended.
Well, I think we need to talk about what my change, at least show my changes,
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
so people can know.
I had a couple changes.
Oh, okay.
Brian has them too.
I
So
withdraw my
Katrina,
motion.
if you just click on back to message on the left-hand side near the, up a little bit above the attachments,
Along here.
go move your mouse above the attachments,
Back.
down. Stop, right, go left,
In the
left,
white.
The arrow.
in the white.
Oh,
I can't read that.
Back to message.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now click on 427. The minutes, click on that document, 427. Nope, nope.
not open? Oh, just click on it?
Just click on it. And it should bring up the reader in the email. Well, I think that's because you tried to open it. Try just
Click on
clicking
the
again.
531 and then go back.
There
There
we
you
go.
There it is.
There you
Okay.
go. Okay. Now, you can scroll down. I have no idea what changes I had in here.
Wait, yeah, so,
Can you blow that up?
no, you can't. Oh, you should.
I don't know. No, I can't make it larger on here.
Okay, so actually, this is an important ad, Katrina, for you as well. And I haven't noticed this before, and I wouldn't be surprised if this has been missing on many of our 40As, but we should have in there discussion and agreement on required findings,
Okay.
right? Because we do, and I think actually, if you go back to when Roger Holman was alive and with us, I think we actually voted on them. I think there actually was a motion, and do you remember, Peter? Didn't Roger have us voting on the findings?
Who?
Roger Holman. Remember, he introduced the idea of us doing findings.
He might have, but I don't.
I think we used to vote on it, but at
Yeah.
least we should have discussion and agreement on required findings. That should be on all of them.
Okay.
So, I think that's the only significant change I had in that. Maybe,
Wait,
it's-
so under 893,
Mm-hmm.
go. Motion made by Mr. Yeomans, and then add second
Oh,
by Mr. McCusker.
yep, second, yep.
And then for the vote on that one, to close the public hearing, is that there twice?
Oh, nope, I put to open, but wait, there's a vote to open.
Go down below at the bottom of 893.
Well, to close, oh, yeah, it is in there twice. Alright, I'll just take it out the second time.
Because the second one had
Yep.
Natalie in there.
Yeah, so I might have just cut and pasted it the wrong spot. A lot of times I'll just cut and paste votes. So that
Good
was just on
catch.
me.
oh, I see, okay. Yeah, and I tightened up some of the language on, 894.
Wait, so, sorry, on your comment, you're saying the second one is the duplicate? So the one that says case 890 under case 893? That's what you were
Oh,
commenting?
maybe I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, cause what happened, what I do is I take old minutes.
Yeah.
And I just type over, so I just forgot to delete that off the old one.
So the second one is the one that we're deleting?
The
Correct.
third one.
Well, the second
Oh,
close.
yes,
Yeah.
got it.
Third motion, second close.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, gotta look at.
No, it's,
Anyone else have anything?
No.
All right, so I move we accept the meeting minutes of April 27th, 2023 as amended.
So moved.
motion made and seconded. Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
All right, so go back to message,
Okay, now I know how to do this. Go back to message.
and then you should be able to just click once on that. There you go.
There we go.
So this one I actually did a little bit more significant rewrite on, but this is the one that actually wasn't a meeting, or, it was barely a meeting. But just kind of try to make it real clear.
Oh, this is the one where you showed up and left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't expect anyone else to be there, and Peter
Yeah.
and Bill were there, so we actually did do a vote and things.
Oh yeah, that was the one I was going
Yeah.
for.
Unless anyone else has anything, then I'll just say, make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2023 as amended.
So moved.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yeah.
Chairman votes yes.
Hold on one second. Where are we?
So that was May 3rd.
Yep.
Next one is May 17.
Yep. Just grab these ones.
So I think minor edits, just kind of fixing up a little wording here and there. I don't know if there's anything else.
So mine was, I had one on page 2.
Wait, I have something on just a word under 892.
Mm-hmm.
The third bullet point, town losses. It should be town loses.
Yeah.
The upper
I got
hand.
that
Yep.
one.
Okay.
Bob,
Yep.
Bill got it.
Okay. Got you.
On the middle of page 2, it says Wendy Reed, and then, oh, okay, you crossed that off. It said we cannot deny it.
Yeah, Bill crossed it off.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And at the bottom of that page, on page 2, wetland issues, off-site, but not within 25-foot no disturb buffer.
Yeah.
Okay.
off-site, but not within the 25-foot no disturb buffer.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone? Let me just scroll a little more. Actually, there's nothing major. I don't think there was actually. Minor stuff.
I had under discussion of flat roofs on page 3. Abutters do not like the height, so change to flat roofs.
Do I take that out?
Well, we should, it says abutters not like the height.
Oh, do not.
Abutters do not like the height.
Anyone else have anything?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes Wednesday, May 17th, 2023.
Second.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Mr. Yeoman?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
So the next two I did not have any comments on.
I have a few on the page 3.
All right, hold on,
We're
hold on,
talking
wait, hold on,
about June 15th, I think.
No, June 14th.
June 14th.
Page
We
3.
have June 14th,
June
then
14th.
June 15th.
Oh, excuse me, I had the wrong one. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't have anything on 14. June 14.
I didn't have it.
yeah. Make a motion, we accept the minutes of Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 as amended.
As not amended.
Not amended, as amended.
As presented.
Okay.
I can't vote, so.
I need a second.
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 Motion made second.
Third.
Oh,
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Ms. Bizwas?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Okay. Let's go there. So now we're on the 15th.
I have comments on page 3.
No, hold on. Oh. All right.
This is June 15th.
Yep, June 15th. On page 3.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Sewer department, the second bullet
Oh,
is connection at Christopher Drive
Oh. Okay.
and in-street sewer lines adequately sized for a 104 unit apartment.
Where was that? Where was that?
Page
Page
3.
3, under Mr. Yeoman's comments.
Sewer department. Read it.
Got it. Okay.
And then, on the next to the last paragraph, annual, appeal process has changed. Private citizen appealing the decision must put up a $50,000 bond to appeal. And then at the end of the next, with the judge's discretion to make the person appealing the decision to have then put up a bond.
It wasn't, it's up to 50,000 bond,
Yeah, must
he
put
said-
up to a 50,000 bond.
Up
Sorry,
Must put up to,
Up to.
yeah, they,
Okay.
put up to, okay, yeah, that's,
on that, I was told it was a 50,000, but then, Dan said they changed that.
okay. If you lose the appeal, you lose the bond. Judge's discretion to make the person appealing the decision to have them put up a bond. So it's the judge's discretion.
That's,
I think
Okay.
you just delete.
that's really comforting.
That's all I have.
I move that we accept the minutes for Thursday, June
Takes everybody
15th,
the wind out of their
2023.
Second.
Sails to
As amended?
that irritates me.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Okay, June 29th. Hold on, Bill had.
I don't have any changes on that. I read it. Bill, you have a few things there, right?
So,
Yeah, I tried to clean up the way we were writing the, we didn't do anything.
so at the top, if you go back to the top, it's missing Jiffy.
I don't think we had Jiffy then.
Yeah, I was absent, but do you need to specify that in the members absent?
Were you a member on June 29th?
Yeah.
Was
No,
it?
I
Okay.
wasn't. I was
All
I was absent.
Okay.
But do we need to list that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
was me. Sorry.
He was a member on the
All right.
minutes before, so.
Okay. Like I said,
Yep, that's
This
fine.
is a lot. It's okay, Katrina, you're a rock star, it's okay.
So then,
I was starting to go blind
A
doing
lot of
minutes.
stuff, yeah, but a lot.
Could you just scroll down a little further? I mean, so I
Absolutely.
cleaned up the language on we did nothing, and then
so then that should be 3 ZBA members are not in attendance.
yeah, good point. So yeah, so then I also tried to clean up and make it clear what happened at Elm Rock. All right, so I
Oh.
assume the chairman did vote Jiffy to be a voting member. Matali had been, but she was not there, right?
Yeah, because Matali was absent. Yep.
Right. You're on.
So then I
not
take
present.
that back, Katrina. I was there, right? This
Oh,
is
yeah,
June
so-
29th.
Yep. So you're.
Yeah, actually, you voted, so I
Yeah.
hope you were there.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just move you up from one to the other.
And then 2 is correct.
Okay, yeah, so we're back
I
to
move
two
that
being
we,
correct.
I move that we accept the minutes of Thursday, June 29th, and there are 2 Thursdays up there, by the way. One could be
Thursday.
omitted.
Mon-
Got it.
June 29th as amended.
So moved.
Oh, you second.
What's,
So
It's not always-
before we vote on that, though, I think I wasn't at this meeting, and I just want to make sure that we've got it right. Okay, so particularly with Elm Rock. So Elm Rock came back in, and I guess they requested withdrawal.
He did not come back in. He sent an.
Well, okay, but
an
the
email
applicant,
in.
yeah, so
Yep.
the applicant requested a withdraw, and then I think that's correct, right? So Jiffy was appointed to vote. Matali had been appointed previously, but she wasn't there. And then Peter didn't vote because he wasn't at the June 14th meeting.
Correct.
So then we ended up with who voting? We ended up with Jiffy, Bill, Kay,
and Brian.
and Brian. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, right. Adams abstained, 4, yeah, okay, I think we got it right.
Okay.
So, yeah, we already did the motion.
We need to do a roll call vote.
We have to vote on.
Ms. Reed,
yes,
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Mr. Yeoman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Chairman was yes.
So I have not reviewed the next 2, July.
July 19th, July 27th, and August 17th are what we have left.
I have a few comments on page 2
On which set, Bill?
on July 19th.
Okay.
The second paragraph discussion, it starts discussion with Mr. Yeomans regarding fire department needing space to put up ladders behind buildings.
Where's this?
In other words, take out regarding the safety traffic committee with the town, just put discussion with Mr. Yeomans regarding fire department needing space to put up ladders behind buildings.
Okay.
And then at the bottom, discussion on wetlands. Attorney Hill asks in the Jeff Walsh discussion there, Attorney Hill asked the number of test pits. There was 7, not 2.
Okay.
and then under Chad Boardman, just to kind of back up, the $260,000 sewer fees would like waived. It needs to add an I in waived.
What was that again?
260,000 in sewer fees would like waived, but it just was misspelled.
Right, Ms.
Waived is spelled incorrectly.
Was it 250,000
Yep.
in sewer
Oh.
fees?
No, it was 260. I'll double check that. I'll listen to the minutes.
Then I think the proposed to give 360.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It is 250.
And it waived is spelled incorrectly.
Yeah, I got that.
I told you.
Okay.
It's either 260 and 360 or 250 and 350.
No, I think it's 250.
And then on page 3, next on the bullets on the bottom, Next step items, sewer line capacity.
Okay.
On the minutes going forward, just the dates at the top, you have 2 days.
Oh,
On the ones going forward. I
yeah.
think
I'll double check them.
Yeah, which day is it? Or was it a Thursday or a Wednesday?
It was Thursday.
I move
I
that we
move-
accept the minutes for July 19th, 2023 as amended.
Second,
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Now we're looking at Thursday, July 27th.
Just have to go through real quickly. I have no comments.
I have a comment on the first page. Grafton Wetland Bylaw, comments from Jeff Walsh. Grafton Wetland Bylaw,
The bottom.
grading of basins and no disturb buffer zone. Grading of basins and protecting the no disturb buffer zone. He spent quite a bit of time on that.
Okay.
I move we accept the meeting minutes of July 27th, 2023 as amended.
Second. Okay.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
August 17th.
And now we have August 17th. I have a comment on the first page under Mr. Giovanni. The second, the second line of that sentence. Under the condition, there was no foundation under the addition and required a complete rebuild with a proper foundation.
Okay.
And then the stutter up at the top, Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a Saturday Night Live, Pepsi.
So under discussion of sewer fees, maybe I had a bullet that said, that Mr. McCusker spoke with town administrator and, there's no objection to not waiving those fees or something like that,
Okay.
Wait,
just to kind of complete the picture.
Okay.
there's no objection to not waiving this fee?
Yes.
That's a lot of
Double
negative.
negative. But I get what you're saying. I'll
I
correct
don't
it.
You said he was even doubtful it was legal to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is I talked to Evan and Evan was fine if we don't do that.
Okay.
So somehow we want to say that.
All right. I'll figure
I
it
move that
Actually,
we
it's
accept,
Evan and the Board of Selectmen. We're fine with that.
we accept the minutes of Thursday, August 17, 2023, as amended.
Second.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes,
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
boy, is that an accomplishment, huh?
Thank you.
I didn't think we were
Second.
gonna get out of here tonight.
Make sure
With
Bill
all
heard.
we
I
had
move we adjourn.
Yes.
Second?
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes,
Ms. Bizwas.
I'm
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
impressed.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. We're adjourned.